Well, welcome. Thank you all for coming back here. I've got the pleasure to introduce Bryce and Ben. I had a chance, having been a Manitoban originally myself, I've known Bryce for years and years, thankfully also through his involvement here on the planning committee. Had a chance to do that. And now in the role on the farm, we've had a chance to be able to have some sales and interact a bit on that way. I met Ben a number of years ago at Organic Alberta. I have this bit of a problem when I see somebody in one context, I don't expect them to be in a different context. So I didn't quite recognize when Ben and I next met at an auction, and we ended up bidding against each other numerous times over and over, fighting for the exact same stuff, pushing the prices higher for both of us. So it's unfortunate. I think now if we're ever at an auction sale, we'll be able to divide and conquer, be like, you get this piece, I want that piece, and at least we won't be bidding against each other. So anyways, they've got an awesome opportunity to tell us more about the opportunities that are growing here in the organic beef sector. And one of the things we wanted to say to those of you who are attending, we really are hoping to kind of make this a little more interactive. So definitely feel free to raise your questions, be able to speak them out, or if it just works better for you to send them out as a question within there, and just provide a little more interactive back and forth questions. So you definitely don't have to wait for the very last minute for your question. So yeah, let's take it away and go from there.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Stuart. All good. So Bryce and I, we set up a company called 8 Acres. I'll get Bryce, if you want to go ahead with your intro and stuff on the organic side, and then I'll follow up with the grass fed side. Probably works best.
Yeah, and don't forget to share your screen, Ben.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So thanks, Stuart. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm from Southwest Manitoba. Been farming here with my parents all my life, and we certified the farm organic in 2009. We did that in a trying time back in 08, 09 when everything was worthless. So we figured commodities were in the tank. So we wanted, our neighbors were doing organic, so we wanted to get a bit of an edge. So we decided to certify the farm organic. And I guess seeing that we started with very small with the cattle, just finished a few head of cattle and seeing the opportunity in that market to grow. So we over the years we've grown that. We've had a big focus on regenerative agriculture while we're doing that. So yeah, that's we integrate cash cropping into our operation to supplement the cattle, and it's worked really well. And so then I guess through the years of marketing cattle, I always had the vision of having our own national brand, and just never had the volume to go ahead with that. And over the years, we've grown from finishing say 20 or 30 cattle to finishing over 2,000 head of cattle in a year. So I met Ben through a mutual connection. We were both selling cattle to a processor, and that whole deal kind of went south. So that's how I ended up meeting Ben, and our visions pretty much aligned. We think quite alike, so we got talking, and him doing the grass-fed cattle and us doing the certified organic. It was a natural fit for us to work together, and both having a strong focus on the regenerative ag side, building the soil, integrating cattle into a cash cropping system as well. So yeah, that's how I got to meet Ben, and I'll kind of let Ben tell how he got to where we met too. So
awesome. Thanks, Bryce. So I'm originally from New Zealand. I moved to Canada in 2008. Originally, that was just for a 6-month time frame, and I thought at the time it would be a pretty good idea to do skip the winters, do summers in Canada and summers in New Zealand, and switch around and fill a year up like that. And I did that for the first year, and then I guess I was pretty interested to find out what the winters were all about and what all the fuss was about. So So yeah, stayed from the winters since then, basically 2009 onwards. And my background in New Zealand was grass based. Everything was grass based. I'd never been to a feedlot before. Everything was finished on grass, and so I was pretty interested to try and implement at least some of those practices, and that come from just the farm management side of things to extended grazing. And not necessarily year-round grazing, but that's sort of what eventuated as we sort of got through one hurdle and expanded our grazing. It was we were looking for the next spots to extend it even further, I guess. And then coming from New Zealand with a grass-based background, that was kind of all I knew. So I was pretty intent on trying to get that something figured out to do that. At the time, it wasn't about building a brand, but we sold some cattle to some other people that were getting going on some grass-fed branding, just in a small way, and that worked. It sort of gave us a chance to get to that next level, get some production, and then as we grew our numbers, their volume wasn't quite increasing at the same level, and so all of a sudden we were overproducing. And I could see a big opportunity in the grass-fed space for, within Canada. Most of the grass-fed stuff was either smaller producers or it was being imported from the likes of New Zealand or Australia. So when one of your biggest competitions is imported, it kind of makes sense. There's a bit of an opportunity, we felt, to produce more of that from Canada, and hopefully that would, people would recognize that and that would grow. And so after Bryce and I met, it was sort of a natural fit, as Bryce had mentioned, to try and join together. We both needed to do the same things as far as marketing, processing, further processing, all those kind of things. We needed to do them either on our own or together. And I think neither of us probably would have got to where we've got to on our own. That would have been there was a whole lot more to it than what we could take on. And even together, we've put we've got a really good team around us to try and take things to that next level and make sure we're not missing things. And on the regenerative farming that both of us have been working towards. That's a big part of the branding and what we're trying to represent. At the end of the day, the livestock are they're almost the livestock, and even the grain side. I mean, it's a byproduct of the regenerative system that we're looking to highlight and looking to expand on and have others expand on as well. So that's kind of our introductory level on kind of how we got to know each other. So then when we decided to take the leap, I guess we needed to come up with a brand, and we were calling around various places trying to get our eggs and our ducks in a row, and effectively we were trying to sell our beef before we had a brand, before we even had beef to sell. We were trying to get some markets going, and we learned pretty quickly that no one was interested in talking to us unless we actually had some meat to sell them. And so I guess we went about our branding. In order to do that, we needed to come up with a brand, and a brand that would work in the retail space. So we had to think a lot further outside the farm than probably what we were used to thinking. So that was certainly different. So we worked with a branding agency that helped us. We were throwing ideas at them, and they were kind of throwing them back at us, telling them that doesn't work. So in the end, we kind of met in the middle, and we ended up with the 8 Acres brand. And the 8 Acres, the branding behind that is we're trying to tell a story. So the idea behind it, that the 8 represents the infinity symbol, and the acres represents the land that we're farming. So essentially eternal land, regenerative, organic. that sort of ties in with that. So that was a really interesting process to go through. Cost a bit of money, but finally, we had a brand, and then we were able to kill some cattle and have some beef to sell, and we got pretty excited out of the gate, and we kind of had no idea really what we were going to end up with or how much we were going to be able to move, but we just knew we had to have some meat to sell, and our first sales were boxed beef, and we learned pretty quickly that if you didn't have anywhere to go and you start ringing people up, telling them that you've got meat, they're not really prepared to pay you the price that you need in order to get it done. As soon as they know you've got fresh meat, then the sharks come out and they try and take it as obviously as cheaply as they can, knowing that you've got a limited time to get it moved. I don't know if you want to elaborate on some of that, Bryce, from your side.
Yeah, for sure. No, we definitely went through a school of hard knocks to start with. But in saying that, if we didn't take that leap at the start, we would never, you got to start at some point. So there's a bit of a real sharp learning curve. There's more involved in getting one of these deals off the ground than a guy could ever imagine. But in saying that, we got there. Just as far as even logistics and cold storage and setting all that up and realizing your shelf lives and when stuff needs to be frozen and not having stuff go bad. We had product go bad at the start because we didn't have sales for it and we weren't handling it properly. So we learned a lot of things the hard way at the start. But yeah, and if it wasn't for the team we had around us, we would not be where we are today. We got a diverse team of some young guys and some guys that got a lot of experience in the industry. So that's the key to our limited success we've had, even to get to where we are today. That it's been the team and nothing more than that. Because if you didn't have, if me and Ben set out to this on our own, we would it wouldn't get to where it's got today. Yeah, so we've got we got Michelle. He leads up our sales. Jeff is our accountant and CFO. Me and Ben are the ranchers, and Mike and Ian look after business development and labels. And labels is a big part of our business. We'll get to that when we're talking about retail, but that is a huge part. So yeah, it's been good. What's next slide, Ben?
Okay. Freight logistics. You want to talk on that?
Yeah. So what we learned, so at the very start, we sold some box beef to get going, and then we landed our first retail account with Longo's in Ontario, and we were really excited. This is awesome. We ended up getting our brand developed, like Ben said, 8 acres, got some labels made, and we were ready to launch. So we were shipping our beef LTL less than the full load. So it was taking about 10 days to get the product to Ontario, to our retail processor, our co-packer. And then we were going into retail with that. And we learned real quick that we couldn't do that because of the timing. But again, we learned that the hard way. So then that was a big learning curve. So then we had to change to doing dedicated trailers. So it's back to that same old thing when you plan on doing, you kind of plan on doing you think in your head you're going to do it this way, it's going to cost you this, and there's no one there to tell you that that's not going to work, and then you figure it out for yourself, and everything ends up costing you a lot more money. So we learned the hard way that we couldn't do a lot less than the full load. So we learned that by having product go bad, because it was, meat is very particular on when you're doing a fresh program, that you have to get that cold chain has to stay as cold as possible, and you need to get it processed as fast as possible. We work with federal cold storage is very hard to get in the prairies. It's almost impossible. We learned that as well. So yeah, what else on logistics, I guess, but it's very, even distribution to get this stuff. So we have limited time to get it out of our slaughter facility to our further processor, and then to the retailer's distribution center, all within, 7 to 10 days. That whole chain's going to happen. So, we've had weather issues, and it's all these things that come up that you have to, they throw curveballs at you. And we learn that, like I said, it's all learning as you go. So
our biggest issue, I guess, at the moment is getting our volume up to warrant having full truckloads. We're paying for a full truck, but if we've only got 2 skids on that truck, it doesn't matter. We're still paying for it. So that's one of our that's our initial thing to keep increasing. And our volumes have been increasing, but that's one of our initial challenges anyway to get things moving. So our co-pack is kind of next, and that's been an interesting. That's been a really interesting ride. The slaughter side has been very consistent, which has been good. Further processes, so getting it into retail format has been that's been our biggest challenge by far. So when we started 2 years ago, it's coming up on 2 years now. Which was right at the start of the COVID times. So we got into a couple of, our first processor, and then that didn't quite work out, so we had to shift to another processor who had enough volume, but because of COVID, they were used to doing food service, so restaurants and things, and they weren't used to doing retail, but they had a lot of retail space available. It was quite a big facility that wasn't at capacity anyway. And then with COVID, they were looking for work. So that was that seemed to be a good fit at the time. It was sort of a natural progression, I guess, which did work out well. And things were going well. We went through a lot of challenges there, I guess, to get things right, to get the colouring of the meat right, and the packaging and the labelling, and get all that figured out. And then we finally got that figured out. We were going good for about 3 weeks, and then food service opened up. And all of a sudden, our small volume ended up being a pretty big pain in the ass for those guys. And there's a lot more to retail than food service, with the labeling and labeling being one of the biggest headaches. So we found ourselves kind of stuck there for a little bit. We had to find a switch and find another processor, which we were able to do. And then we got going there, and our volume for them was actually bigger than what they were used to doing. So in order for us to grow, we actually had to move again. So again, further challenges with labeling, and every time you shift, it's just a whole new set of rules, and every process has got their strengths and their weaknesses. And trying to find that right balance has been a challenge, but it's sort of been a progression that we've had to take and kind of figure it out as we go. What's your thoughts, Bryce?
Yeah, like on the retail labeling, what everyone doesn't, these processors that weren't used to it, because there's not a lot of programs like ours out there, to be honest. Like there's, our ground beef, for example, is packed and it has 2 labels on it. So if you have an order for 5,000 units going out that week, you have to hand apply. Each pack has 2 labels. So then that's 10,000 labels that you would, these packers some of these people were hand applying them. So you can only imagine what it's like to hand apply 10,000 labels within a couple hours, right? So and that's where we are today, is at a company that has automatic labelers, and that's been a game changer because that's all automatically applied. So that's, and keeping, labels is like a bad word between me and Ben, because we've spent a lot of hours talking about labels, and as soon as anyone brings up the word labels, our blood boils, because we've spent so much time and effort and redoing labels, and we've thrown out lots of labels because they weren't right. And when you have a federal program, if you have the wrong, when you move processors, you have an establishment number for that plant, and then you move plants, and then you have to change that, and it's a complete utter nightmare at some points. But we seem to be got her dialed in now, so it's going a lot smoother now. So it's just those pains getting it to that point. There's always issues though, like these, and that's what I say. If we have any big hurdle, it's the co-packers, not attention to detail. We've had put the wrong labels on. Then I go to the retail store and scan it, and it says when you're scanning it, it's scanning out stew beef, but it should be ground beef. So then that's a nightmare, right? So you have to recall the product, and yeah. But we got some, back to the harvest facility has been pretty good. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here either. They've been flexible with us, which is good. There's no other way that you could do what we're doing, because when starting small, some packers would say you've got to kill a set amount of cattle every week, no matter what. And currently we have a pretty flexible agreement kind of going on, so which has been really good. Yeah, and that's about it. And like, what else on the co-packers, Ben? They're the key. Like, if we don't have them, that's I guess that's it's the same as your people, and you need to, like our slaughter facility, I go there at least once or twice a month, or every month or every other month, and sit down with them and convince them it's a good idea to keep doing our work, right? So that's because we are small, but you can't. You got to start small to get to where you're doing a volume that they like, but we're still not quite there yet. So we got to nurture that relationship to keep it going.
So I got a question on the logistics that kind of comes up, and it's probably an ignorant one, but in the kind of when moving bulk freight, it's can do a split load between one producer and another. So in a processor, if they're doing, say, a line of kosher beef that's going to Toronto, it's not possible for you to also get skids of organic beef also going to Toronto, or it just doesn't work to try and marry that up? Or
we do split loads, Stuart, with kosher beef. How did you know that?
I was just a wild guess. Sorry, Ben. That was just a wild guess.
So we do split loads with our processor at times, and it definitely cuts down. But we definitely, to be efficient, need to get up to half a load split, which is hard to do, or you need your whole full load. But yes, we have been, and that's helped a lot. If we didn't have that, it would be probably unattainable to do dedicated trailer. So
it's not consistent, I guess. We don't know from week to week that that's necessarily going to be the case, and we have to have our trucks booked regardless of whether or not there's going to be a split load. But
it's so time sensitive that you can't when your product gets fabricated in the plant, so it gets cut at the harvest facility, and then you get your release papers from the E. coli test. That stuff has to hit the road.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you can't just wait around and delay in order to save a few bucks on transport. It isn't going to work.
No, because then you end up having issues at the other end that cost you money with discoloring and everything. And the reason that is, with our stuff, see those packages there on the slide, when that goes to the store, there's 21 days shelf life on that product. So it's not necessarily the product is going bad. It's to get that longevity of the shelf life to last the 21 days. And it's not even the meat is still safe to eat. But if you guys can imagine this, if you go to the store and you see a little bit of discoloring on the corner of it or whatever at 19 days, no one's going to buy it, right? So these are all things that you have to make sure that you get it there in time to make sure the product is good and represents well right to the end of its shelf life.
And another thing on the logistics, I guess, is getting everything in time. So we're 2 weeks out on when we kill to when that meat actually gets to the retailer. So we've got to know exactly what we're killing in order to get that timeline going. And so we're killing we're trucking on a certain day to the plant. We're killing on a certain day. They're fabbing on a certain day. We've got to have the truck organized on a certain day, because that lines up with the co-packer to keep them going, and then the trucks, and then to the retailer. And there's a lot of things that on the fresh program that have got to line up. And
the reason that is so tight too is that we do not want to kill cattle we don't have sales for, because we're in a niche program. So that's why it's all. So literally, me and Ben, we get our POs in from our retailers on Monday at 10 o'clock, Monday morning at 10 o'clock for 2 weeks out. and we load the cattle up at 11 a.m. So we have we get the orders in, and that's the way we've been able to survive. Because if you had to say, you already had to commit to say killing 20 cattle, and then the orders come in really light, and then what are you going to do with all this premium product that's you paid with too much? Like, you pay a premium for this product, you can't just sell it elsewhere, right? So
that was one of the challenges we started with, and when we ran into some hiccups, is because the retailers didn't want to give us any more than minimum. We were down to 3 or 4 days, so we were killing animals on spec, hoping that was what they were going to do, and then we were stuck with leftover product, or worse, we'd short them because we didn't kill enough, and their orders would be up, and then and we were kind of all over the map, just kind of guessing, because that's all we could do, and we finally managed to get them on that 2-week program. It took a while because they didn't want to change their ordinary stuff out of the gate for a program that they had no idea if it was going to work or not. So we were kind of at the mercy of them, but we've got a bit of consistency now. We've been able to get them onto that 2-week program, and that is really it's really helped us big time. So we can kill. We're still a little bit out depending on the size of the animals, but maybe within a couple of 100 pounds, not 3 or 4 animals one way or the other. So that's if you can see that slide there. That's our retail packaging, and we've gone through. Each processor has got a different, slightly different molds and slightly different things. So there's a few tweaks that we have to make. We're currently, you see the black background on the packaging, the black on the back. We've actually switched now. We've actually got clear on the back, and one of the main reasons that we went clear on clear is for the recycling aspect of it. It actually doesn't necessarily present as well. It's not quite as sharp. You see a little bit more purge and stuff. But we really wanted to stick to the the environmentally friendly side of things, and having the clear on clear. And I guess it's slowly coming into the retail side. The retailers are seeing a little bit more of that, but we are some of the first to do that. So there's some pros and cons, I guess, but we do want to highlight the pros about why we're doing it.
So when we do everything right, that's how our product looks, and that's how as good as it gets. So that's top notch. That's what we like to see.
So that's the good. This is the bad.
So we'll tell a story about when we first started. It was in July of 2020. So we were just a few months into where we started, and I had a friend that was in the city of Brandon, Manitoba, late in the evening, and he had sent me a video of this truck burning down on the side of the road. I never thought anything of it. It's just a trailer burning down on the side of the road, right? It's a Sunday evening. It was Sunday night, middle of the night, and the next day, Mike Delaney, one of our members, our team members, he phones me. He goes, "You're never gonna guess what happened to our product." I said, "It burnt down in a trailer in Brandon." And he goes, "How the hell did you know that?" So it was just kind of a wild guess. So anyways, we were just shipping a bunch of samples and orders to Vancouver that had been in Ontario. So it was coming through Brandon, burnt down. So that's just one of the hiccups that we've had, in our journey, I guess. And this, when we were talking earlier about having issues with discoloring, and this is the ugly, and this is what we went through. So this stuff was at retail, looked fine when it went there, like when it left the processor, and it never regained its color, and we get it all recalled back. So that was our early days. That's the school of hard knocks learning. We learned a lot from that. It was very, very painful for a couple months, but we got through it. And the picture on the far right there, you can see is they were goes back to the hand applying labels. They hand applied that label exact backwards on that package. So this is some of the upside down and backwards. So these are some of the things that you deal with, right? And obviously that's, like we said, that's ugly. We don't want to see that again. And we've fixed our problem since then. So it's behind us, but we like to look back on it and laugh about it now. One of the biggest things we're dealing with now and working on to be profitable is you have to utilize as much of your carcass in a premium product as you can. There are some pieces that there is no premium for, and we're trying to change that. We've the organic and grass fed, two different lines. There's the organic, the main muscle cuts, we're getting a premium for most of them, which is working out really well. The grass fed, we struggle on some stuff, but we've just attained a really good market for our grass fed offals, which is our organ meat, which is going to really help move the needle. Just they're making supplements out of the grass fed organs. So, these are the things that we're really working on now, and to make our program last a long time and be profitable, that's where we need, because right now, to be honest, it's not a profitable program because we haven't fully mastered the carcass utilization, and we're working on it. It's a work in progress. As you can, a beef carcass is very diverse. There's a lot of different things you can do with it, and we're still learning what people call certain things, and even industry people are still wondering. Like, everyone's got a different name for everything. So, and the market's changing. There's little niche cuts that guys are doing now, and that, and one of the problems, it goes back to what Ben was saying earlier on throughput or volume. A lot of these cuts, say we kill 15 head of cattle and we want to sell the flank steaks. Well, you only get 20 kgs of flank steaks off that many cattle. So it's hard to justify doing a retail SKU for that, right? So, as we grow and get our throughput higher, that's when we start adding some of these, marinated flank steak and these kind of cuts. And we're working on those as well, because and especially with a fresh program, frozen's a bit different because you can kind of build them up and then process it as long as you have a frozen buyer. But we all know sales are hard on a frozen program because everyone wants to buy. No one goes to the grocery store to buy frozen. Everyone goes to the grocery store to buy fresh meat. So that's what we're up against on that side of it.
Cool. Cattle supply. So both Bryce and I obviously were the first ones to put together the grass fed and the organic supply. The objective of this program is to definitely grow that out and have other farms and other suppliers come on board that share the same values, that are focused on the regenerative agriculture and the same mindset, and hopefully we can help grow things out, and because that's what both of us were looking for when we got going, and there just wasn't the market there to move the animals, and we wouldn't have gone down this road, I guess, if that market was there. So we kind of know what it's like to be in that position, and that's our intention, is to build out a national program that we can have other suppliers and work together on this on the whole process is going to be pretty cool. Bryce, do you want to talk on the organic supply a bit more?
Yeah, for sure. Either organic or grass fed, it's not necessarily the number of cattle, it's the knowing when to have them ready. We're always trying to bring on new customers, and you bring on a new customer and they say they want it, they have a kind of a volume prediction of what they're going to need if it goes well. And dealing with these bigger retailers, they're very, very slow in getting anything done. And when they say they're going to get it done, it's not likely going to happen. So when you're raising the cattle for that, you want to make sure you got the cattle there, but you also don't want to be stuck with, for one, overaged cattle or over fat cattle, or just feeding. We don't want to be doing any more recreational feeding more than we're already doing. So, that's the biggest challenge, is lining it up for the cattle to be ready at the right times and knowing how many cattle we're going to need. The supply is not necessarily the issue today. Hopefully it will be at some point. But the challenge is getting them ready at the right time. So. So this is part of our. So we do it both in a. I want to kind of touch on that too, Ben. On the one of the biggest spurs in my side is organic certification at the plant level. So we've missed out on a lot of because we're moving plants here and there. Every time we go to a new plant, they have to get certified organic, and that's been a big thorn in our side. It's time consuming and it's very slow. For very little at the processor, they do very little difference for the organic, but it's just a pain in our ass. So that's why you see some of these pictures with grass fed, not organic. It's just the same line in organic where it's grass fed. And we're just showing some of our on the right here. That's in the banner Rochelle Berry in Quebec. They've been a huge supporter of 8 acres. Probably our biggest. They're under the Sobeys banner, but they have 14 standalone stores, and you can see that we have full case dividers in there. It's in French, but they've been a big supporter. So we have point of sale material in there and everything. And we've learned the hard way that store representation is really important. So we've actually hired in Quebec only so far. We have a Momentum. It's a company that represents us at store level. So, and that's relatively new. So we're still kind of just seeing the first results from that happening. Anything else, Ben?
Yeah. So actually, I guess just on the organic certification, we've gone through a period where we actually had to stop with the retail. With the retail organic because of that, because we were waiting for the whole organic process and the certification and things like that. So that's really hurt things and kind of definitely set us back. It's probably been an advantage for the grass fed, but definitely it's been a disadvantage for the organic because we haven't been able to get it on the shelf simply because we've been waiting for that organic certification at the plant level to go through. So that's that kind of.
It's another thing to put on your label as well, because we need to have our certifying body at the plant level. Like we do it so the plant has to they have to have an accredited number. I don't know what you call it. Stuart would know more about that. But anyways, it's been a pain because as soon as you put we do it with a private label agreement. So there's a number attached to those labels. Like for an example, we were doing an organic frozen burger and it was all pre-printed on our boxes. Now we left there and we can't use all those pre-printed boxes because that certification and the number, is attached to that plant. So that is the biggest issue with the organic side of things, to be honest.
If anyone's got any ideas on how to fix that, would help.
Yeah. Stuart?
I've left certification now. Sorry, I can only tell you about skin knuckles and best way to remove a reluctant oil pan plug.
All good. So we've got some when we look at the some value add products and trying to create some more SKUs and carcass utilization. So burgers we've been doing for a while. We're one of the only places or companies in retail that are actually doing fresh burgers. So we started that, and that's been going well. And then we're just coming out with our frozen burgers. And also our hot dogs. So hot dogs are going to be on the shelves in a month or 6 weeks time, I think.
April 1st. Yep.
Our first run of hot dogs. So that's both in the grass fed and organic. And everything that pretty much all SKUs that we do, we've got one in the grass fed, one in the organic, and that helps keep things simplified. We've got the burger 86 and the hot dog 86. So the branding story behind that, the 8 represents the 8, which is the namesake of 8 acres. So the eternal symbol, and then the 6 is the 6th element on the periodic table, which is carbon. So that ties in with our regenerative farming and storing as much carbon as we can in our soils. Hence the hot dog 86. So that there will be the healthiest hot dog that you could find on the shelves, and you can eat it and actually feel good about eating a hot dog. So that's how that come about. And we're looking to develop I guess various other things as we go along. But those are a couple of big sellers, I guess, or hopefully they'll be big sellers. Lots of people eat hot dogs, lots of burgers. We're coming into hot dog and burger season here, hopefully sooner rather than later. So that's where we're at with those two. And our so currently our main retails are Rochelle Berry that Bryce talked about, IGA, which is the Sobeys in Quebec, and then Longo's, which is in Ontario. We've got 36 stores, mostly around the GTA. And then Sobeys, which actually covers the Rochelle Berry and IGA banners, but we're looking for to move some stuff into Sobeys out west, and hopefully Ontario will tag along at some point. So a big part of our branding and our story is obviously the regenerative farming. So we're set up to be Canada's first large scale regenerative beef production model with a retail program. We're looking for a national program, so we want to get a few extra provinces under our belt when we can. It's 100% Canadian product, both the grass-fed and the organic. And then the carbon sequestration side, which there's a lot of talk about various different brands that are carbon neutral and carbon zero, and everyone's kind of talking about carbon, and that's one of our big things too. Is we want to be carbon negative. We want to use the cattle to sequester more carbon than we create, and use those carbon offsets in the future to work with some of our retailers and things like that are looking for some carbon offsets. It's sort of a pretty good way to kind of connect the dots, I think. Bryce.
Yeah, flip to the next one there, Ben. So coming up too, those are Ben's talking about what we got kind of existing, and we got a few things coming up for 2022. Looks pretty exciting for us. We kind of put the last 2 years behind us as learning, and we're moving on to bigger, better things. We've got a listing with Whole Foods in Ontario, and so we've actually, that's right in the process of getting finalized. So we had to go through another on-farm audit. So at my farm on the organic side, so we achieved a step 4, because Whole Foods uses it's called Global Animal Partnership STEP program. So it's a 5-step program, and it's all based on animal welfare and living conditions and that. So we achieved a step 4 for our cattle on part of our farm. So those cattle will be going to Whole Foods that achieve the step 4, which is basically enhanced living. The only way you would be able to get better is if the cattle were never castrated and slaughtered on farm. So we achieved the highest standard for that, which is a good feather in the cap for us. We can use that. It's basically an animal welfare audit too, right? So we can use that on our packaging going forward too, if we would like to. And the Safeway and the Thrifties is also under the Sobeys banner. That was a challenge for us. This the stupid COVID thing is we were supposed to launch last November, and we've now been pushed for the second or third time. I forget exactly if it's 3 times been pushed off, but March 10th is our official launch date in Thrifties and Safeway in BC. So that's pretty exciting. I think we're getting down on time there. So I guess we'll see if there's any questions.
Now, I do know I just want to kind of say to some of the other participants, there obviously was a little side chat going through. So in case you kind of missed that, I mean, Laura Telford asked the obvious question, well, like, hey, why don't you just slap a label over the old one? Which Bryce clarified, CFA doesn't quite allow that. Obviously, it just speaks to the level of different legislations and regulations that you guys have got to work through. I can totally sympathize on the challenge on the certification side. I mean, most people are concerned, most other organic processors are worried about switching certifiers because they have to change their label. But you've got all the additional challenges. Even if you just moved facilities, suddenly now your previous labels are no longer valid because it's got the wrong facility requirement, which no other industry actually has that. Like, you don't have a facility requirement for food processing. So, and I mean, also,
I have a question too, Stuart, which is, I'm wondering if the grass-fed and the organic just compound your logistics nightmare. Like, if you have to fill a truck for an order, you know, with organic, like, what do you do with the grass-fed? And that, or does it end up ultimately giving you more flexibility with retailers having both programs?
Well, the one of the reasons we got, which attributes to our start, which was Longos, and the reason we got listed with Longos is because we offered both lines. And they told us straight up they had a grass-fed vendor that they were already going through listing documents with, and when we come in and offered both lines, they decided to go with us. So that's been, that really what got us started. And we can, if we wouldn't have got started with Longos, they were a good, we probably wouldn't be in Sobeys. So we don't want to. I can see what you're saying, Laura. It helps in some things, like with throughput or like with volume for trucking. It definitely helps because we still do the grass fed and the organic on the same days. Obviously the organic gets done first, so when it gets shipped out east, it all gets done at the same time, just separately. But the organic has just created the issue with the certification and having to be done first thing in the morning. So it creates more issues.
It does.
But in that case, maybe having grass-fed helped you because at least you had a venue to sell the organic.
100%. The grass-fed
was,
no. If we were strictly organic, to be honest, we probably wouldn't be here. But and likewise too, though, because it works both ways, because they both, they both have their place. So.
It's the biggest problem that we've had is the co-packer. The co-packer, because we've got twice as many of everything. We've twice as many labels. We've got 2 front labels for ground beef. We've got 4 ground beef labels, 2 organic and 2 are grass-fed. And then we've got extra lean and we've got double of that, and like everything's compounded. So it's the process is freaking, they hate it. It doesn't work that well for them, because even though we've got the total volume, it doesn't necessarily matter, because it's half of the volume of one and half of the volume of the other. So for them, we might as well be 2 completely different producers, because they've got to change. They've got to completely change everything out. So it's but on the retail side, it's good, and from the logistics side and getting our volume up and shed trucking and all that, that's where it definitely makes sense. And like Bryce said, neither of us would be here on our own.
I can ask a question there if you got a minute. I wondered what pushed you to go towards more fresh beef than frozen. Is that all coming from pressure from your grocery store partners?
Yeah, there's I just don't think there'd be appetite to list a frozen program. So frozen sales, typically are probably 1/5 to 1/6 of what, or even less than what fresh sales are. And I don't think I just don't think there would be, we struggle with volume on a fresh program, and that volume would be even more limited on a frozen program. I'm not saying we would never have it. We're developing a frozen program for smaller retailers, and it is good to have both, because then we can, we're talking about having to have that amount of trim, or the amount of our cattle right on. So if we have overages, we can go into our frozen program.
And
Currently, you do have the burgers as a frozen product and fresh.
we have them in both. A lot, like Bryce is saying, a lot of your other cuts that come off a kill are so small volume that we would struggle at the moment to have a fresh program. But that's where we, if we can angle them towards a frozen program, we can accumulate some volume then, and then sort of run a process at once, and kind of we can build up some inventory, and then that's where the frozen program definitely works, and we need to get that going. But as far as our other main cuts and our grind and things like that, we wouldn't want everything to be in a frozen format. It would be fantastic if it's sold, but I don't think we would get the volume to get it sold.
It's we're demanding a premium already, over like a lot higher than the commodity beef. So to get that premium and be frozen, it would be very tough. But in saying that, so the companies we're developing frozen programs for now are like home delivery companies, a lot of online shopping too. So that's going to be huge for us if those come through. So
I think Zach had also had a question in on here. Maybe this kind of ties in a bit with Laura's. How come you don't have one line that's grass-fed and organic? Make things more complicated. Throw a third line in.
Well, we've talked about this, and in a perfect world, we would have that. I guess that's a goal to shoot for. Ben, do you want to comment on that a bit too, or?
I think that's that down the track. I think we could. The challenge with Sorry, my phone's ringing here. The challenge with getting anything set up, and especially in beef, is the lag time for the lag time that it takes to actually have an animal ready, and by the time we kill it 2 years later, those cattle either, and in the grass-fed system, those cattle either go on grain as calves typically, so they fall out of any grass-fed system, and then the organic, well, they have to be organic to start with. And then they have to be grass-fed to start with. So it takes some time. Where I guess we're definitely looking at the trying to get the low-hanging fruit, if is any low-hanging fruit, and work with what we've got available. I think there's a spot for organic grass-fed. I just don't know. I'm just not sure what that volume would be, and at the moment we don't want to kind of cannibalize one or another either, I guess.
It's funny, some retailers, they don't care about the organic, and they just want grass-fed, and the next one, they don't care necessarily about the grass-fed, they want the organic claim. So it's in a perfect world, we'd have them with both claims on, but like you said, right now it's working and basically it's what we were doing when we started too. We didn't want to, at the end of the day, we don't want to change everything we're doing, for just to start a program. I think down the road, once we have stability and know exactly what we're doing, that's where we look at it.
So I was going to comment or congratulate you there, Bryce, on achieving step 4 within the Whole Foods system. I was always surprised when going to some of the Whole Foods markets and seeing an organic farm that I myself had inspected. So I kind of knew what they were doing. And then I'd look at their process and I was like, oh, step 2, or step 3. I was like, wow. So it's a fairly rigorous program. And it's interesting because, as far as my understanding, isn't it impossible to actually be step 5, to actually have slaughter on the farm? I thought the CFA doesn't really like production and slaughter being in the same physical location.
You would have to have federal slaughter on farm, under my understanding, there's no one in Canada that's doing that. I don't even know if there is in the US. So it's step 4 for cattle is basically top, which you can get. So we do, not all our cattle qualify. So we have to run a split operation. So we've got basically a Whole Foods group of cattle. Basically only change we had to do is the non-confinement. The Whole Foods cattle have to have access to pasture year round. But basically, and the travel restrictions. Yeah.
Right. Distance of time from time of shipment and everything else.
Yeah. Everything else we were already doing, there's, so those were the two things basically.
I guess also on that, Bryce, I mean, any cattle that now that you've got step 4, any cattle that you purchase outside the program for the Whole Foods program have to fit within those parameters too, eh?
Yeah. So they have to be, to buy cattle to go into the Whole Foods program, they have to be GAP certified at the original farm, and they have to meet step 4 at the original farm as well. So it's quite a pain in the ass. But
it's a good thing you fostered markets with a number of different retailers, so you got some flexibility there, and
that's the making the program work, is that once you get, the more customers you have, obviously the more work it is, but the more flexibility we will have too, right? With shifting things around. Whole Foods is kind of an outlier because they have certain requirements for them, but the other retailers have less requirements. You can shift stuff around, right? So it just gives you more flexibility. It's just like anything. If you were farming 30 acres of oats and you had to only supply one customer or whatever, you're not very flexible, right? But the more customers you have and the more cattle you have, the more flexible you can be to shift things around, right? So it's and we're looking forward to having that flexibility.
Well, excellent. We're just approaching the top of the hour here. So if anybody has got any last minute questions for Ben or Bryce, please pull them together. I'm going to say, if you ever end up in a shortage of brisket, if you just got no market utilization for that, you just let me know. You just let me know. We'll make an arrangement here. And I don't care if it's frozen. I'll work with that.
Sounds good.